some of the languages in the deobfuscation contest. So if you're playing, here's a hint. 500 points, particular individual, the programming language is named after a disease. And when you read the source code, you will agree. There's a challenge in one of the contests that I'm giving a hint for so that everybody has fair access to said hint. Named after a disease. The programming language involved. Good luck. So besides that, we have Boris up here for the next talk called You're HIPAA Certified, or You're HIPAA Compliant, and Bob just killed someone. No. That's Objective C, actually, is a disease. And there's actually a joke about that in that challenge. But I'll hand it over to Boris. Everybody give him a big round of applause.
Hi. So I just need 1 second. So I curse. I'm sure I'm not going to offend anyone here, but if I do, fuck you. You might as well leave now. I'm not Bob, so if you are law enforcement, you probably should leave now. Some of you might have seen pieces of this. I might have done this talk about 5 or 6 months ago. There's been some more research, and we'll talk about the research, but according to the lawyers, I can't really present on it, but we'll get there in a minute. So who am I? Not that you give a shit. I run a podcast called Grumpy Sec. I'm Jaded Security on Twitter. Been doing this probably about 15 years. I started pen testing when only the telcos were doing it. So some of you guys who think you're really cool because you run Metasploit and consider yourselves pen testers, we didn't have Metasploit back then. Just, throwing it out there. And obviously you don't care. So the disclaimer, it's all theory. None of this has ever happened. Nobody's been popped. Nobody's died. Nobody's still maybe sending their PHI to someone else. Yeah, we'll get into that. And I used a lot of bit strips. I don't know why. I really didn't feel like going out and looking for images. Plus, I respect copyright law to some regards. Fuck you. Is that Jake? What am I? I still have my fucking sunglasses on. Cool. So my friend Bob was diagnosed with cancer in 2012. He's not dying. Nobody gives a shit, so don't cry. Don't feel sorry for him, whatever. Bob had a biopsy, saw an oncologist, got a PET scan, and started treatment. Bob's wife wanted him to get a second opinion at another facility, right? So in order for Bob to get his medical records that he pays for, right, he had to jump through a shitload of hoops to get this stuff done. So problem with that is there really wasn't a formal process at this place. He signed a bunch of forms and nobody could figure out where these forms go, and faxing them. And yeah, fax is still a thing in 2013 apparently. Well, this was in 2013, but he faxed them. He didn't get any responses. There were some conversations with lawyers, and yeah, so we're gonna go into some theoreticals on how Bob could have taken his own stuff home. It'll be good. So you guys all remember the healthcare.gov fiasco, right? So that robots.txt is still up. It's been 9 months? It's fucking ridiculous. Yeah, it's cool. But yeah, they don't have to be HIPAA compliant apparently, so we'll just go into one of their test sites that's still fucking up. I just don't get it. These are the guys that want to enforce regulation, right? Okay, fuck it. Dave Kennedy can ride that thing. So HIPAA's weird. HIPAA doesn't actually say you have to implement any controls. The only thing HIPAA really says is that you have to do a risk assessment. Who here works in healthcare? Risk assessments are easy, right? Yeah, it's just a whole fucking checkbox of shit that you don't really have to do anything. It's just we looked at it. This is fucking awesome. I'm sure this is legal, but whatever, fuck it, I don't care. So the security rule and the privacy rule essentially say that you have to ensure that the whole CISSP bullshit the CIA tried is followed. Administrative, physical, technical safeguards are there to cover for covered entities. Covered entities is kind of weird too, because technically everybody's a covered entity. But if you're not part of a, if you don't exchange PHI over electronic form that's not fax related, for example, like if you're a small mom and pop shop that just sends faxes, you're not covered. Most orgs are covered entities, right? So healthcare, doctors, clinics, psychologists. I'm not going to read that. You got the picture. More than likely, you're a covered entity. If you work in healthcare, you're a covered entity. Um, you will be popped. Like I've never this well. So this talk is focused on one major healthcare provider in the Northern California. However, Bob has visited other healthcare providers. Bob's background is about 15 years ago. He started the HIPAA practice at a consulting company, like when HIPAA was just a wet dream in Clinton's left nut. He knows HIPAA. He knows healthcare. He knows how to get around things. So yeah, so essentially privacy ensures that the privacy of your protected information, and it's essentially just for CYA, right? You're never going to get your health records. That sucks. And again, some of you have seen this, and you'll find the research really cool. And I do have a giveaway at the end, so pay close attention because I'm giving away Raspberry Pi. I'm not really sure what version it is. I had it in my bag, and I don't need it, but it's 512 meg. I lost a bunch before. Yes, Jake, what do you want? What? It's going to cost you a blowjob at least. Whatever. Okay, problem solved. Moving on. Yeah, so some of you have seen pieces of this, and there's some really cool research that we might have to turn the cameras off, and we'll talk about that when we get there, and that's some really fun stuff. But yeah. Okay. So HIPAA requires each covered entity to perform a risk assessment. That's all you're bound to do. You don't have to implement shit, you just have to have a risk assessment. Most controls are addressable, meaning that you don't necessarily have to implement the control that would be best practice. You just have to implement control that an auditor would be cool with. Who knows an auditor here that'll sign off on anything? Anyone here with TrustWave? No? Nobody? Okay, cool. Just saying, they fucking... Shut up, Jake. Target. Whatever. So yeah. So again, I'm not going to expect you to read this, but the fine print is addressable versus required. Everything is addressable. The only thing that's actually required is performing the gap assessment, performing the risk assessment, writing it up, and hey, we did our due diligence. We're cool, right? Fuck that. That's awesome. Okay, so security standards, general rules, covered entities and business associates must do the following. Ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of all electronic protected health information of the covered entity or business associates creates, receives, maintains, or transmits. The reason I'm reading that is you'll see blatant violations in that security standard at this one major healthcare provider. So we all know compliance isn't security, right? Who does GRC? Who checks boxes, right? We all know that this is the basic minimum to protect us from legal litigation. That's all it is, right? You check the box, you did your due diligence, it's cool, right? Target check the box, right? eBay just check the box, I'm sure they're good. So, enough boring stuff. And I know some of you have seen it. Just wait for the research. Wait. Lots of cool things. And there might be an app in the works too, so we'll get it. We'll get into that. So Bob's sitting in the waiting room. He's got an idea. He's gonna start planning things, right? Like, you know what? If you're not going to give me my PHI, I'm just going to fucking steal it, right? It's cool. It's mine, right? It's Bob's body. He just wants his shit. So obviously he set some boundaries to protect himself from legal complications and no law enforcement, right? Cool. So no data or PHI exfilled ever. They'll never leave the organization. No Metasploit, right? Because Metasploit's for pussies. Like, if you have to use Metasploit, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Not that Meterpreter doesn't help in a lot of instances when you don't really feel like doing your own shit, but yeah. So any facility on the campus is free game. meaning that if they might have a pharmacy a couple blocks away, that nobody's there, connected to the same backbone. It's cool. Um, Make no determination by single instance, which means that, hey, if Bob only saw one reference, doesn't necessarily mean something happened, right? So we're gonna hit him big. Bob's gonna hit him big and steal everything. Make it rain, because we all like rain. So these idiots. Okay, so. And I'm not going to teach you anything. Like, anyone who's a pen tester will see things here and be like, yeah, that's how we do things. Yeah. Okay. Maybe you're not a pen tester, and maybe you've seen shit like this on TV, and we do this shit all the time, and it's fun. So yeah. So receptionist. This is an actual picture that Bob took of the receptionist desktop. You see that iPhone plugged in? What you don't see is that's a monitor blocking her view of the console. There's a couple of USB ports open on there, right? Just a few. It's a Windows environment. So assuming, this organization did their risk assessment, the receptionist definitely has access to PHI. She definitely can pull up your folder. She can definitely make changes to your insurance information. She can definitely look at what your diagnosis is. There's a risk assessment. Cool, right? So Bob was a dick, and Bob is a dick, but Bob's going to be dickier somewhere else, because this is just way too easy. So Bob was a dick, forward-facing USB, right? We all know how to use Arduinos, right? Everybody knows that this isn't hard, and yeah, it's Windows. It's cool. Targeting her iPhone, because that's not hard either. So Bob was on the pen test. It's over, right? Yay, winning! No, not a pen test. Bob's not actually getting paid for this. Bob just wants to fuck with them. Because Bob's an asshole. Bob's a dick. So Bob sees what else he can do. Because, again, Bob's a dick. So the facility offers free Wi-Fi for guests. Cool, right? WPA2 for hospital staff. Yep. Yay. Yay. Bob's MiFi. We'll get to what we use that for in a second. So this is the only time in my life in Bob's life, where he found this fucking thing useful at all. Like, there's really no use case for this thing at all. But yeah. Yeah. Pokemon 27 might have been that password. Maybe. But whatever. I move on. Like, honestly, the pineapple's a piece of shit, but it was in Bob's bag, and Bob decided to use it the one time ever. So, funny thing about SSL. So all their apps, Bob was able to notice that all of their apps that were on the wired network. Oh, we'll get to that in a second. Sorry. All the apps on the wireless segment used SSL. So obviously, he didn't want to do any man in the middle. Not to say that he might not have. He might have in a couple places, but SSL safe. It's cool, right? It can't be attacked. So while Bob had to wait for blood work, he might have found a live RJ45 port on their corporate network. Hidden there. Just hidden there. Behind that plant. Just hidden there. This is a live image. Bob could have plugged his laptop in, right? But then, it's kind of obvious. Like, even the dumbass receptionist would have noticed that. She might not. She probably wouldn't have. I'm giving her too much credit. If only there was a way. If only there was a way to plug something in to, pivot some attacks without being noticed. So that little anchor, I think that's a 20,000 milliamp. That'll last 6 days, apparently. Tell me more. So the code's up on Git. Search Jaded Security. It's up there. If not, just ping me on Twitter. So I do have the image up there. So it's just running Linux ARM. It's got Ethercap, YASI. Is anyone familiar with YASI? So YASI's really, really cool. So if you plug into a wired network, pull up YASI. it'll go out and map the environment, look for all of the IPs, look for all open ports, and then just locally index every file it can find. Isn't that awesome? It's open source. It works really, it's kind of like Foca, but better. Much, much better. And on top of that, it's decentralized, so you can drop a couple of Raspis and have them talk to each other and then index to a cloud instance. Not that Bob did any of this. He's not exfilling anything, it's just, searching, right? It's all metadata because the NSA says metadata is safe. It's not private. Yassi for the win. So basically what Bob did was every file that it indexed, he used some basic logic to just, check to see if Bob would think that the data that he found is PHI. Nothing advanced, just some bullshit regex stuff, some parsing, looking for social security, looking for the word diagnosis, looking for the word name, looking for anything that would be PII or PHI, right? Because at this point, you're violating the agreement that you have in place with your with your users, with your patients, that you're protecting their data, because you're not. So if it found anything, it would just send a 1. Just the number 1, because we're just counting how many records we can find. Mind you, winning. Make it rain, baby! So Bob dropped, 6 of them? 7 of them. 2 are still up. This was a year ago. 2 are still up as of like a week ago. Bob might check the cloud instance every so often. But yeah, 2 are still somehow amazingly plugged in. I'm not sure how the fuck that happened. So on to LayerOne. So Bob found some other cool shit. So apparently all those apps that were using SSL on the wireless network weren't using them on the wired network. So there's some old legacy console shit that, yeah, it's cool, right? Yep. No SSL. So again, Bob started parsing data. Because Bob's a dick, right? Like you do. This isn't water. Oh, fuck. Okay. So Bob found something really stupid. Like, I'm hoping that none of you actually have telnet to your core routers on the fucking network. And mind you, Bob didn't pivot anything. This is from a live RJ45 port that might have been in the waiting room. It's cool, right? Nobody does this. Whatever, bro. It's cool. It's cool. Whatever. Yeah. It's from the movie Hackers. Hackers. Artist no. Sure. So, Bob found something else interesting. So apparently Raspis need power, right? And those little power banks are expensive. USB extension cords apparently are in use to allow mice to be plugged in from that lockbox, because you're going to lock the console, right? You don't want anyone touching the tower. But the mouse can't really plug into the tower, so you use a little USB extension. That's cool. Wait, do I have 2? Sorry. Okay. So Exfil was fun. So Bob didn't actually have to look through their network to exfil anything, because he had access to their wireless and their wired, right? And the guest wireless. See where I'm going with this? Winning. Oh, fuck me. Yeah. So after 5 months, that was 5 months ago, so 11 months, 2 are still reporting. So since December, they've only unplugged 1. And I don't think they unplugged. Their desktop that it was plugged into is probably broken or some shit. But yeah. I don't have a current number on how many records there were, but there were only about 5,500 patients at this place. So I'm pretty sure I got everything. Bob got everything. Bob. It was Bob. It wasn't Boris. Bob Swim. That's his last name. Bob swim. So if Bob was on the pen test, game would be over, right? Right. This is where you send them an invoice and say, "Pay me," because you guys are stupid. And this isn't like anything technical. Like there was no active attack at all. There wasn't any shells popped. There wasn't any. Hey, I got domain admin. I got root. There wasn't any of that. There was. You guys are stupid. Like you checked a bunch of boxes. That's cool. But yeah. So Bob had a couple weeks left of chemo, and there was still a lot more stuff to do. So he already had full network access, right? Technically, he had reverse shell to the. Yeah, we'll get in there. Yeah. This was funny. Bob decided to walk around. Their electrical closet was unlocked, completely unlocked. That might have been where one of the recipes went. So yeah, no, it's cool. Physical access, electric closet, not a risk. Bob moves on. Patient rooms. So patient rooms are great. And the extra piece that you guys didn't hear about, we'll get into that. Bob might have bought an IV drip on eBay, and that's what we'll talk about. Yeah. Because Bob likes to do research, and he's OCD-ish, and yeah. So patient rooms. Patient rooms are great for access. They'll leave you there for fucking hours. You really want to fuck with a hospital, go fake a fucking heart attack. They'll leave you in there for days. It'll be great. No, seriously, if some of you are pen testers and you need a way in, that's actually not a way in. Have the ambulance bring you. It'll be fucking awesome. It'll be fucking great. I've fallen and I can't get up. Yeah, so nothing to see here. That's not a Raspberry Pi hanging out in my bag. Bob's bag. Bob's bag. So, what exploit? So why do you need to establish a reverse shell when there are just workstations unlocked everywhere? Yeah, that's cool, right? Unlocked everywhere. And I guess Sam did a talk about Python shells. So we've been doing that since like 99, evading IDS. Windows doesn't care. It just doesn't know what the fuck a Python shell is. It's like, okay, cool. I'll run it, whatever. I don't even know how this works, but it's cool. So yeah. Yeah. It's like 4 lines to write a Python shell in Windows. It's cool. Cool story. You don't need the evil exe. I'm just saying. I don't see him. So yeah, so there's that USB cable for the physically locked machine. It's cool. Whatever. Bob. Fucking Bob. What a dick. Sorry. I really like this. Yeah, cool. Okay. So what about all the fail, right? What the fuck else can Bob do? Because Bob's a dick. So in order to avoid any adverse reactions, they start off chemo really fucking slow. Like really, really slow. Like you got like 10 hours of just sitting there and thinking about what the fuck can I do? If the Wi-Fi was faster, or if cell phones worked, like it might not have been, hey, I'm just gonna fuck with you as much as I can for 10 hours. It might have been like, maybe I'll read Reddit and use my OCD powers for something else. But yeah, so what the fuck is Bob gonna do? So Bob starts looking at things. He starts really looking around the room. Like, have you ever looked around the room at a hospital? There's a lot of things there. Like, you can fuck with the oxygen, I guess, and there's things that you can play with. But there's a lot of things that you have access to, like, I don't know, crash carts in the room. Like, locks aren't hard to pick. Surprised, right? But that's easy. That's easy. So IV drips, they're great. So apparently there's a remote console for this fucking thing, and it uses serial to ether. But it's really stupid. Like, it's really dumb. There's no password on it at all. So Bob didn't want to kill anybody, but we'll get into what Bob can do in the, yeah. So Bob might have bought this exact machine on eBay. And that's where the lawyers said that you can't talk about that. We'll talk about it for a bit. Yeah, okay. So I just don't care. Because I'm not Bob. Well, I'm a dick. I'm not that big of a dick. So these are fun, right? Bluetooth to USB. Bob could have easily dropped one of these on these fucking things, because those are like what, $10 on Alibaba. Whatever. Yeah, we'll get into the IV thing in a second. We might have to turn off the cameras for that. So this was great. Apparently, the barcode scanner doesn't validate input. It blue screened. Who knew? Who knew? Yeah. Because, it's 2013 at this point, I guess. Now it's 2014, but I don't even know what the fuck that is, to be honest with you. I don't know what I did with that. I really don't know. If you want to scan it, I have no idea what the fuck I put on there. It might be Lemon Party, actually. Is it? It might be Lemon Party. It is? Winning. Lemon Party! But seriously, who needs passwords? Clearly that machine is for staff use only. So that machine was wide open for 45 minutes. 45 minutes. Yeah. So I did get into how many machines were still reporting. The amount of reverse shells really hasn't decreased. We'll talk about that when we turn the cameras off. Had this been an actual pen test, hospital would have been owned, several backdoors had been dropped, PHB would be the attackers for the taking. And you guys know that PHI is worth way more than a credit card in the black market, right? Like way more. Credit cards, what, like 30 cents at this point? You can get $5 a record for these things. This is just one healthcare facility. Bob wouldn't have had to sign a HIPAA form. And the facility maintains that they're HIPAA compliant. Make it rain, bitches! Can we kill the camera? And we can go into some fun stuff. Oh, that sucks. Yeah, can someone turn it off? Can we turn it off? Fuck it, whatever. Whatever. Fuck it. So Bob bought an IV drip on the internet because, eBay's fun for that, right? You can buy fucking anything on eBay. Bob bought the exact same model on eBay with the console software. And apparently, awesome. That's fine. It's fine. Whatever. It's cool. It's cool. We're all friends here, right? It's fine. Whatever. It's cool. It's cool. It's cool. It's fine. No worries. No worries. Where were we? Oh, so Bob got the software. Oh, speaking of which, a buddy of mine, who some of us know, would like Bob to bring this IV drip to DEF CON. So we'll talk about that, I guess, after. If you guys want to self-medicate, it's cool. But yeah, that's a side note. Okay, so Bob bought this drip. Bob spent $1,800 on it. His wife's pissed and whatever. Point being, Bob hasn't sold it yet. But it came with the console software, which was written probably for Windows 95. So from the IV drip, which is really slimmed down BSD kernel, you can establish a telnet connection to the machine running the console software. The machine running the console software, and Bob might have been able to figure out how to track it back to patient names, because some of the bigger hospitals actually use that monitoring thing so they can administer it from the nursing station. So you have access to whoever's hooked up to whatever IV drip. Well, I didn't hear you. More. Sure, free morphine. Yeah. Could be worse. I really don't think you can die of a morphine overdose. Can you? Okay, whatever. Okay, so maybe that is one way to kill somebody. Combined, combined with the remote access that you have from the parking lot. Bob just killed someone from the parking lot. What a dick. But there's more. There's more. There's no code being released. Although I can give you specific model numbers and eBay sellers. I'm not really sure why anybody would fucking buy an IV drip on eBay. Like, I just don't get that. Like, I didn't necessarily. Bob did, yeah, but Bob doesn't need a warranty, right? Like, if it stops working or administers the wrong dosage, I don't think Bob gave a shit. Like, if you're at home and you need an IV drip, I'm assuming that's a problem. Well, whatever. Bob's got an entirely different mentality, so whatever. I don't know what Bob is fucking doing. Bob actually, so Bob's learning Objective C, and Bob is writing an iOS app. So the framework's already written. Bob's just trying to GUI it to get it to work on mobile. You walk into a healthcare provider. It'll automatically identify all open access points, run YASI across that one network, see what it can get, along with a combination of some OSINT to see if that hospital or healthcare facility has been popped before, and just pop up a warning if you should do business with them. Bob just wants to make the world a better place. Bob's done. Yeah, winning! So if someone wants to help Bob with the Objective-C, because apparently Bob doesn't know how to code for iOS at all, he'd be willing to accept help. Oh, so the Raspi, wait, here we go, okay. How many Raspis did Bob drop first hand? He had the first hand. There you go. Winning! And that IV drip Bob might bring to DEF CON. So if someone wants to self-medicate, Bob can self-medicate you. Yeah. Okay, winning. Yay! We could talk about the IV drip research. I didn't specifically make any slides for it. I can give you the versions and the names. I haven't released it to the company yet, so I don't want to push it out there yet. I don't know if that's their default config or if when they do sell it as a corporate level, if they do implementations. But out of the box default, from what I understand, there's no authentication at all. And I didn't necessarily have to pop anything to establish that telnet session. I was able to run it over the same connection. So, winning. Oh, Bob did. Yeah, Bob. We're still on camera. Bob did. Bob did. Yeah. It's interesting. Their stack is really weird. Like, it was probably written in 1995. It's a really weird ether stack. Sure. Internet's hard. That's why I'm a level 3 pilot. Yeah. Winning. Go ahead.
The recipes that Bob left randomly for the hospital.
Randomly.
Were they disguised in some way, shape, or form, or were they circuit board flipped?
Circuit board's duct taped under the nursing station thingy.
Just checking.
I actually did recover one of them. Hold on, Bob. It's not in this bag. Wait.
If we should need some spare Raspberry Pis, which hospital should we visit?
It's not in this bag. It's not in this bag. Bob actually did recover one that's in my backpack. That's in Bob's backpack in the car. Bob should just stop being an asshole. Yes, Jake. I'm ready if you want to come up here. Sure. Do not remove? Yeah, so when I gave this talk at B-Sides, Jake actually had a really good idea but Bob hasn't done any external discovery since. If Bob would have labeled those Raspies "Do not remove," they probably would all still be up. Maybe. Thanks, guys. So if you want to download, if you want to grab the code for that, it's on GitHub.